without our mothers, and of course, those who helped to shape and mold us to become the human beings we are today, and the ones that we hope to be tomorrow, being a better human being as well. And so you tune to the State of the City. Let me get one or two announcements out of the way, and then we're going to get deep into the show and the flow, and we'll kind of do a quick review from last week, and then, of course, we're going, of course, deeper and steeper than where we went last week. So I promise you, we're going to drop some bombs. Don't get alarmed. Don't call Homeland Security. Don't call 911. Don't call 411. They might be shut down anyway downtown in City Hall if you can be keeping up with what's been going on. You may not be able to call 911 or 411 or 311, but you can get the 411. But tomorrow, I understand, as I had on the State of the City radio show on WFBR, my sister Natasha Muhammad, and of course her able and capable husband, Brother Omar Muhammad, longtime host over on the campus of Morgan State University of Briefcase Radio. But they're having their 14th annual I for Change conference, of course, which is about teaching our young people, of course, the importance of going into business and being entrepreneurs or Afropreneurs. So that's taking place tomorrow on the campus of Morgan State University from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. So if you want more information, you can go online to Sister Natasha Muhammad or Brother Omar Muhammad, iforchange.com, and get more information on that tomorrow. And then, of course, if you haven't seen this movie that's out, this movie Buddy Bolden, The King of Jazz, I remember my late teacher, Baba D. Gregory, peace be upon him, he told me about this movie back in 2007, that he played Buddy Bolden, who was the man who discovered Louis B. Armstrong, the great Satchmo. And he said that he played Buddy Bolden locked away in an insane asylum, that the movie was filmed, the last aspect of it was filmed in North Carolina back in 2007. And the movie was released last week nationwide in selective theaters. So if you haven't seen the movie, which I'm planning to go and see it this weekend, and so I would encourage many of you and plenty of you that haven't seen the movie Buddy Bolden to go and see it. And perhaps next week we'll maybe have a little discussion on the movie as well. So the movie was financed, I believe, and produced by Danny Pritzker. Danny Pritzker, for those that may not know, is the brother of one of the hotel families that own the Hyatt Hotel. I think his sister is Penny Pritzker, who used to be President Obama's Secretary of Commerce. But nevertheless, he backed the movie, he financed the movie, and there was a lengthy article, an interview with Baba D. Gregory, the late Baba D. Gregory. At that time, it was in the International GQ magazine. You can pull it up, and if time permits, I'll post it, pull it up, place it on my Facebook page so that you can go back and read it. But a very in-depth article talking about Baba D. Gregory through the ages, through the years, but also talking about that movie, Buddy Bolden, and his playing Buddy Bolden locked away in an insane asylum. He only lived, I believe, to be 54 years old, and he spent the last 20 years locked away in an insane asylum due to racism and white supremacy. When they can't hold you or control you, then they will seek to erase you, displace you, and whatever way, form that they can do so. And so one of the ways they, of course, were able to do that with Buddy Bolden was to put him away in an insane asylum. He lived out the last 20 years, I believe, in that insane asylum. But that is a true story. Most people do not know, and I didn't know of Buddy Bolden until I was trying to reach Baba D. Gregory, and his wife, Mama Lillian, said that he was filming a movie in North Carolina, and then we were able to connect. And that's how far back our friendship extended before 2007, but of course it accelerated after 2007, right up until his death. And I'm sure with his birthday coming up in October and the anniversary of his death, I'll probably do an in-depth analysis laying out what happened to him at Sibley Memorial Hospital and why we still know very little regarding what happened to Baba D. Gregory at the hospital, and those that should be asking questions but haven't stopped to ask the questions. So again, tune to the State of the City. Of course, we were honored to be on last week, so I got to thank Brother Diamond Williams. Got to thank his capable and able assistant, Sister Nikki, for just giving us the opportunity to come to you using, of course, these airwaves, Radio on Fire, and being able to have conversation with those of you that watch, and then those of you that logged in and logged on, and those that after the show went off were able to log in on the YouTube channel and watch the program as well, and then to share the information as well. So I thank those from the depth of my heart that did just that. So I would encourage you again to support Radio on Fire in terms of sending in your donations, not your donations, because those are the ones that we definitely get, your donations. So send in your donations, support Radio on Fire, support the state of the city, and support all independent, real, genuine, legitimate black news media. You can support the others, but support black news media, because this is a time that we need independent black news media. It's not going to have a romance and a bromance with your elected politicians, with these weaponized celebrities and others, but they're going to give you the information, and they're going to give it to you raw, like you really want it and like you really need it. For those of us that grew up listening to black radio and understanding the importance of black radio to our struggle, contributing to our plight, continuing to our fight, continuing, of course, to raise the vibratory frequency of our people, then that's what black radio has always done, to be the salt in the earth and be the salt inside of America. And so as we are now celebrating, elevating, and continue to teach our people regarding 1619 and 2019, our 400-year sojourn according to their history books inside of America. And that's why this year, 2019, is so important. And there was a time that we got to teach our people and reach our people with the truth regarding what happened to us as a people, particularly in this state, Maryland, the Jesuit state, particularly in this city, the Jesuit city, St. Ignatius Loyola. Then we got to teach our people and teach others, black, brown, red, yellow, and white, because many of them don't know what happened to us as a people. And so as the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches in his book, Message to the Black Man, it wasn't message to the yellow man, red man, brown man, or the white man, but the message to the black man. He said in the book that the worst crime committed against us as a people was not our enslavement, but he said to rob us of the desire to want to know of what happened to us as a people was an even greater crime that many of our people don't want to know. And you try to share that information, they say they don't want none of that black stuff. Get that black stuff out of my face. I don't want to hear that. So this is what happens, but yet they'll go to school and send their children to school to read about Anne Frank and read about other people suffering, but they don't want to know about our own suffering and how we were turned from the people of God to, of course, chattel and cattle in terms of what happened to us as a people from 1619 to 2019, or from 1555, when you understand the 64 years of hidden history of how they were able to break us down as a people and then to rob us of knowledge of self, God, our language, our culture, and turned us inside out. And so that's why we see the conditions of our people that's still existing today under captivity. They're not free, they're just loose. And of course, it can be demonstrated because Baltimore was one of these first cities, Maryland being one of the first states post-slavery, where we had a large population of blacks. But when you ask, what did we produce? What did we build? You see it based on what we see today. And of course, that is the result of us being free from the mind or the behind, but not necessarily from the mind. So those are the results of what we see. And the Bible says we can tell a tree by the fruit it bears. So if they taught us well, you would see, of course, the development of us as a people in every 9 areas of human development based on the teachings of Dr. Frances Cress Welsing in her book, The ISIS Papers. So again, you tune to the State of the City. Want to do a quick review. Last week, of course, we talked about 4 years ago, post Freddie Gray. We talked about what led up to, of course, Freddie Gray. We talked about, of course, the officers that were involved, the 6 officers. We talked about, of course, the funeral of Freddie Gray held at Shiloh Baptist Church, which again has always been an outpost, a listening post, working with the federal government and working with state government and Baltimore City Police Department as well. Many of your ministers, as we talked about, being a part of the Community Clergy Response Team, or CRC, and also being tied to the FEMA response teams as well. All this is public information that came out, and we were able to see it up close and personal during the uprisings and the revolts and the riots as well. We talked about, of course, many of those who were sent into Baltimore, these new pop-up, prop-up, fake as some AstroTurf activists that were brought in, or black activists and twacktivists that were brought into Baltimore City, and then given, of course, enormous hype at the mic, given the microphone, given all the media mention and attention. And I believe their job, part of their job, was to flush out the real activists so that they could eliminate the real activists either during that time or, of course, months later or weeks later, months later, or perhaps years later over the past few years, to be able to move out and snuff out either directly, indirectly, or mysteriously activists, of course, that stood up to expose the hidden hands of the wickedly wise at that time, expose the local spy network, expose the local media spy network, and exposed, of course, fake politicians. And, of course, we saw those that had basically went out there and was campaigning, using our people pain, legitimate pain and hurt for their political gain. And when you looked at that, we asked the question, what has changed in 4 years? Sandtown, Winchester, again, that area, number one in home foreclosures in Baltimore City, after having the Nehemiah Project, after having the Enterprise Zone, the Empowerment Zone, now the Promise Zone. And I mentioned on the State of the City Saturday that there was an organization set up called the Promise Zone and Promise Heights, and a lot of that money went to the University of Maryland. And we'll talk about that again as the University of Maryland keeps coming up again and again and again and again, tied to the scandal with your former mayor, Kathy Pugh. And so the University of Maryland benefited, and Johns Hopkins. And then, of course, there was the One Baltimore program that was set up. And I believe the CEO or the director was Michael Cryer, who used to be the driver for former Congressman, the late great Congressman Perrin J. Mitchell. And no one has asked Michael Cryer what did he do with that money that he received from the One Baltimore program in Baltimore City. But a lot of money came into the city without any accountability. And Councilman Carl Stokes, you remember that famous interview when he talked about how President Obama and others had called our youth thugs, and he said, why don't you just call them niggers? Which he was right with what he was saying. But nevertheless, Carl Stokes was calling for an audit of the money and city agencies, and one of the persons that was vehemently against Carl Stokes at that time, calling for an audit, was the councilman in the 2nd District, who just this week, which I'm going to talk about, has become your city council president, and that was Brandon Scott. So let the record be clear. Every time Councilman Carl Stokes was trying to introduce legislation to have an audit of the city agencies, Department of Recreation, where they came out and said, we don't have books, all we have is boxes of material, but they didn't have any books. And so only the crooks don't want you to see their books, because then they're on the hook, right? For the books, if they don't want you to see the books. So how can you have a city agency that doesn't want an audit? And Brandon Scott really cared, which I'm going to come and talk about him. And I invite him and any of those who are his supporters and those who co-sign. And of course, we always say only those with bad credit need co-signers. If he could stand on his own, he wouldn't need you to co-sign for him. But he was against Carl Stokes because Brandon Scott comes out of the machine of Martin Teflon Don O'Malley, which is a part of the Irish Catholic Jesuit mob in Baltimore City. So he came out of the Martin O'Malley corral, along with Sheila Dixon, along with Stephanie Rawlins Blake, along with Kathy Pugh, that O'Malley became their mentor. So everything O'Malley told them to do, you can check the record, all those women would do and fight anybody that they thought threatened Martin O'Malley. Sheila Dixon, I remember her almost jumping over the table to attack Patricia Jessamy. I remember Stephanie Rawlins having a joint hearing of budget, and then I think it was public safety, so that she could attack Miss Jessamy for Martin O'Malley, because Miss Jessamy was raising legitimate issues about Martin O'Malley's administration around the illegal arrests, the unconstitutional arrests under the color of law, and she was raising other questions as well regarding what Martin O'Malley was doing toward black men in particular, as we talked about, all the illegal unconstitutional arrests, violating black men's civil rights, giving black men, black youth records, and they couldn't have those records expunged except they signed a form saying that they would not sue the city of Baltimore and the state of Maryland. So they created this permanent underclass in Baltimore City. And this is what we see existing today, where black men can't get jobs, black men can't get housing, black men can't get employment, black men can't get Pell Grants and other things that others can come into the city to get. and some coming in getting amnesty that aren't even legal citizens inside of the city of Baltimore or the country. And this is what we see that's taking place. And that's a whole nother agenda that I'll have to come back and talk about on another day. But it's really sad because the persons and the organizations that's leading that has been beneficiaries of the funds that came into the city of Baltimore following the Freddie Gray uprisings, that has been the Catholic Church, that has been the Jesuits, that has been the Archdiocese of Baltimore, the richest institution in Baltimore City under Bishop Lurie. And so Bishop Lurie and the Catholics, this is what they're repaying to blacks who stayed and sent their children to Catholic schools, even as their children were being abused, even as their children were being harmed, they still continue to send their children to the schools. And this is what you're getting now, that is they're closed and consolidated the black Catholic schools and the schools where blacks were attending. Now they're bringing in the Hispanics and they're building schools for them or putting them in those schools. And that's the sad part. You know, they say charity and clarity is supposed to begin at home. And this is how they're forgiving. This is how they're thanking blacks for all that blacks had done for them to keep their institutions going when others left. And so now they're flooding your cities, where they're majority cities, again, that are Catholic cities and Jesuit run cities for the most part. And on the food chain, which I'll talk about later when we talk about this whole ban on Facebook of Minister Farrakhan and Alex Jones and those on the left and those on the right, that we warned you that this day was coming. But we'll talk about how the Jesuits on the food chain are higher than the Jews. And if Minister Farrakhan, which I'm going to come back and get into that because I got a lot I'm going to share with you on that one for sure regarding that. But again, you tune to the State of the City. But nevertheless, now looking back 4 years later regarding this Freddie Gray and the death of Freddie Gray, and looking at, as a good criminologist always asks, of course, key bono, who benefited? Who benefited physically? Who benefited politically? Who benefited educationally, economically? You look at all of that. Who benefited in terms of the land grab, right? In terms of the institutions, the expansions of institutions, or institutions that was given land as they're selling land and buildings, etc., or lots for $1. That we see Micah in that corridor south of Pennsylvania Avenue, the Maryland Institute of College of Arts, as I talked about, which was a liberal arts college years ago. And now they've been slowly buying up land in the black community all around that corridor from Utah. There used to be a time they didn't come across Utah Place, but now Micah is cross Utah Place, going up on the other side of Madison and going up on the other side close to Druid Park Lake Drive, because they're expanding, of course, in terms of their population and students that are attending the college. And so this is what they're doing. But they were supposed to be about education, not about a land grab, not about setting up through their, what's it called? The name escapes me, but I talked about it last week. But nevertheless, it'll come to me in terms of what they're now setting up. And then once they buy the land, once they get these properties, let's be clear, as they're turning Baltimore City into a university town and a hospital for the most part. And so it's basically, the economy is now, as I mentioned last week, the beds, the meds, right? The feds, in terms of 30% of the federal government run out of Baltimore City. The beds in terms of the enormous amount of hotels, the meds in terms of these hospitals, and the eds in terms of these educational institutions. And so once they buy these properties, and many of them are being given properties for $1, which is really criminal, in terms of your former mayor, Stephanie Rawlins, your current mayor, who disgraced mayor that was just resigned, which I'm going to talk about, Kathy Pugh, and the one before them, Sheila Dixon. Selling off Baltimore property, that's the criminal part, because once these universities get them, once these hospitals get them, they don't pay no taxes on them. So you asking the ordinary citizen to maximize the minimum while you're telling the institutions such as these hospitals and universities that they can minimize the maximum. And that is not fair, again, and just to the citizens in the city of Baltimore, that they should be made to pay into a TIF, tax increment finance, or pay into a pilot payment in lieu of taxes. So you're looking at the greed as opposed to the need of these universities. And you can take whichever university you want to talk about, because they all are engaged in this right now. Johns Hopkins, University of Maryland, University of Baltimore, Morgan as well, Coppin as well. But they don't have as much as the traditional white institutions have in Baltimore City. So these are kind of the things that have taken place since Freddie Gray. And as I mentioned before, the Catholic Church has been the biggest culprit in terms of buying up land. You look at down in that Sandtown, Winchester, St. Peter Claver is expanding, St. Gregory is expanding, and of course, when you begin to look at who owns a lot of the housing in those areas right there. So, but you got to go and check land records. That's another thing. And so that's why we should be able to educate our people with a war room so they know how to go and research the information and bring it back to our people. Because it's all tied into what we've been able to see is these interlocking relationships with these boards, foundations, etc. So now as we're looking at those who have who benefited from post Freddie Gray 4 years ago, then we get into the political component. Of course, your mayor, Kathy Pugh, as we announced last week that she was going to be having a press conference last Thursday. And of course, turned out it wasn't a press conference, but a press statement in which her lawyer, Steve Silverman. Now note, this is the same woman, some of these same black women, as Dr. Francis Cress Welsing said, we don't need the compromising Cleopatras. What we need, right, are fighting Nefertiti's or fighting Nefertiris that we've had, for the most part, these last three mayors. I know y'all worrying about what Mary Bubala said. I'm not concerned about what Mary Bubala said, right? Because that's a whole nother conversation because, again, the general managers of all these news stations sits on the Greater Baltimore Committee that your mayor was selected by the Greater Baltimore Committee. So when you have those that say blacks voted for, we say, no, blacks might have voted, but y'all gave her the money. Y'all gave her the loans to push her over the top so that she could become the mayor. So if blacks elected her, y'all selected her, white folk. So they can't say we elected her when they selected her and they gave her the money and the backing that she need to get over the hump in order to become their mayor. And once she got in, first thing she wanted to do was to get rid of the Martin Luther King Day parade. Now, I know some of y'all got Negro Nation, not Brother Muhammad. That was the first thing she wanted to do. She said we didn't need it. Now, you don't think she would have got rid of, let's say, St. Patrick's Day parade. She would not have gotten rid of, what else they have? Christmas parade. She would have not gotten rid of, what's the other big parades they have around? Gay Pride. You know she wasn't going to get rid of Gay Pride. Oh, no. Now, you know she wasn't getting rid of Gay Pride because she had her campaign headquarters in the heart of the gay community right there on Charles and Chase Street. But she thought it was okay to get rid of the Martin Luther King Day parade, right? And it was Brother Muhammad. Check the record. Let the record be clear. It was Brother Muhammad because somebody called me from downtown and told me, and I thank my sources down there. My sources, as I always say, are deep and steep. And I got an army you see and an army you don't see and won't see. But they called me and said, Brother Muhammad, you won't believe this. And of course, I mentioned it on the State of the City radio show. Then David Brown picked up on it at Morgan State University. Then next thing you know, the big fat, jabroni, Larry Young, and Coach picked up on it. Then others were talking about it. And it made your man come out and apologize. I talked to Karen Stokes, who was down there. And she said it wasn't my call, it was the mayor's call. It was either Karen Stokes or Miss Baskerville. I think it was Tracy Baskerville that I talked to down there. I gave her my phone and said, will you have the mayor or have the mayor's assistant, right, call me because we want to know why she feel that comfortable that as soon as she gets in, the first thing she says she's going to do is cancel the MLK Day Parade. The MLK Day Parade had been going on longer than she had been in the city of Baltimore. Then the next thing she said she was going to do was to reduce the African American festival called the AFRAM. The AFRAM been around here longer than Kathy Pugh. The AFRAM is the first major festival that kicks off all summer festivals. And it's normally in June around Father's Day weekend. But she moved the AFRAM from June all the way to August. And she moved the AFRAM from downtown Baltimore at Camden Yards on the Oreos parking lot or black, asphalt. She moved it out to Druid Hill Park, man. And you got seniors can't walk down them hills in Druid Hill Park. You got mothers with babies and strollers can't make it down there. So she was really insensitive to our people and didn't care. Because you would have thought all of these activists that was sitting down with her, all of these people that was on her transition team, Dr. Tyrone Powers, others that was on her transition team, right? They would have said, Madam Mayor, think about what you're doing now. Just on the surface, look at the message that you're sending to the black community. The people who came out and supported you. This is the message you're sending that you want to put the AFRAM out in the zoo next to the Rhino House and the Bamboo House while everybody else can be downtown. And then you reduced it to one day. So they brought it back last year, and it's 3 days now, but it's lost its sting and lost its effect. And then they charge all types of enormous fees for the vendors because the AFRAM, as I talked to Baba Clee-Brister, when it started out, it was about celebrating black communities around the city of Baltimore. It was about local talent. They would have like a little ceremony on that Thursday, right? Then they would have services on that Friday, events going on Saturday. They would have like gospel concerts on Sunday. But it was about celebration of, again, black life in the city of Baltimore. But again, this is what we saw your mayor do. Then she said when she was running for mayor that she was going to sign as the mayor an executive order to raise the livable wage of citizens in Baltimore, those that had companies of 500 or more employees, right? Those that made $5 million or more per year, that she could sign an executive order to make a livable wage $15 an hour. As soon as she got in there, she said, it's not happening, man. She kicked the can down the road, in fact, and said, let's go down there and see if the governor can do it. But this was your mayor, cold, calculating, and methodical in terms of how she was treating the citizens in the city of Baltimore. Next thing she did was that during the time that Stephanie Rawlins was in there as mayor during her latter days, the citizens in Baltimore City were talking about the speed cameras and the red light cameras that were not working properly, and they were flashing while people were sitting at the red lights. And because people, they know you're not going to come to court to challenge it. So they would give you the benefit of doubt, but they know you're not going to take off work. So some people say, let me pay the $40 ticket. And the company that they contracted with was getting like $11 a pop off of every ticket. So this was a booty camera. This was a bounty camera. And their majority of them are in the black community. If you don't believe me, just drive up Park Heights. Go above Park Heights and Northern Parkway, all the way out to Old Court, all the way on into Stevenson. There are no speed cameras in the Jewish community. Go up and down Smith Avenue, man. You might see one. They're not in the affluent community. You go up Roland Park, go from Charles. I think once you cross Charles at the end of John Hopkins, where it becomes, and it splits and it becomes University Parkway right there. There's one camera near Roland Park Elementary and Middle School. One camera. Other than that, there are no cameras up and down those corridors. And you can go to other affluent communities. So these cameras were revenue enhancements for the mayor. Then the state delegate, Mary Washington, was introducing legislation to say that we should not be taking citizens' homes for water bills. Maryland is made up of 23 jurisdictions and in Baltimore City. In no other jurisdiction do you lose your home for a water bill. The only place you can lose your home for a water bill is Baltimore City. So Mary Washington was introducing legislation. Kathy Pugh went down to testify against the legislation and said that the city raises between $5 to $8 million a year off of taking people homes. But you are already making $5 to $8 million off of the speed cameras, the greed cameras, and everything else. But yet, this is how cold and calculating and methodical your mayor was. Out of touch and out of time with the people, with the masses of our people. That it came out that you had hotels. You had Sparrows Point. You had the Maryland Zoo. They were not paying a water bill at all, and they wouldn't even put a lien on their buildings. But yet, citizens in Baltimore City, it came out that they were taking churches, man. Now, some preachers or pulpit pimps that was politically connected, they could go downtown, have a meeting with the mayor, have a meeting with those in DPW, Department of Public Works, and work out something as far as a payment plan. But if you wasn't politically connected and you didn't know how to go down there and navigate the bureaucracy, they were putting a lien on your home. And normally between April and May is when your home is listed in the newspapers. And I had talked to many elders who they were sending out guesstimated water bills. One elder had a $30,000 water bill. And I had to send him to Carl Stokes at the time when Carl Stokes was the councilman in the 12th district. And Brother David Brown helped this elder. And his water bill was reduced down to like $200. But they were trying to take his home with an guesstimated water bill. And what I'm saying is take that one elder and multiply it by all the other elders in the city of Baltimore. And you don't see this in no other jurisdiction where our people are just trying to live day to day, week to week, month to month. And the last thing they're thinking about is they got to go downtown and check every 30 days to find out if some shyster is working with some other shysters in the still estate department down there, which is supposed to be the real estate department, because they want to take your home. You had the family of B. Gaddy that had the B. Gaddy shelter. Many of you that listen to my show, you heard when I heard Cynthia Brooks on her daughter talking about how they had put a lien on Mama B. Gaddy's shelter. And the lien, the fees, of course, grew because of the fees and the penalties. And she had to pay like $10,000 in order to get the building back. But all I'm saying, this is what's going on. And black mayors are supposed to at least say, this is not going to happen to our people. Because you better know if Italian mayor's in there, it's not going to happen down in Little Italy. If Irish mayor's in there, it's not going to happen in the Irish community. If Greek mayor's in there, it's not going to happen in the Greeks. If Jewish mayor's in there, it's not going to happen to the Jewish community. But with black women mayors and black mayors in there, this is what we saw taking place. And nobody wanted to have no conversation because the black media and the black press, most of them, had a bromance and a romance with this black mayor that y'all didn't want to criticize her. In fact, you still don't want to criticize her. You take criticism and dissent as betrayal, as Dr. King said. It's a dark day in our nation when high-level authorities will seek to use every method to silence dissent. You think because we criticize, Dr. King said, I speak out against the war in America, not out of hate, but because of love. And he said that there can be no great disappointment where there is no great love. So if we love these mayors, thinking about what their potential could be, then it's our responsibility to critique them. That's what we're supposed to do. But we are at a time right now where the black press, where you can't tell where the black press ends and the politics office begins, and even our civil rights organization, because everybody wants to get in line to go along to get along, rather than say, let's have some real legitimate criticism. And there's nothing wrong with constructive criticism. That should be your best friend. The brother or sister that can see what you don't see. Those are the people that you want around you, not people that's going to be yes men and yes women. And this is what, unfortunately, we've seen with these last three women mayors, from Sheila Dixon to Stephanie Rawlins to Kathy Pugh. Nobody wants to criticize them. Everybody wants to be a part of one big sorority. Everybody wants to be a part of one big fraternity. And then you go into protection mode, man, like you a damn offensive lineman for the Ravens. I got the block for her. I don't care what Muhammad say. I got a block for her. Wrong is wrong and right is right. That's the bottom line. And charity and clarity and parity begins at home. So now, these are some of the things that this man that I think kind of had already kind of set the die on her when she got in there. Because the people wanted something new. They wanted something better. They wanted something different. They wanted a paradigm shift. Right? They wanted to change the whole paradigm in the city, that you looked out for the least of these before you looked out for the so-called most of these, right? You looked out for the poor before you looked out for the rich. You looked out for the communities before you looked out for the developers, right? You looked out for the have-nots before you looked out for the haves and the have-mores. But, of course, your mayor looked out for the have-mores and not looked out for the have-nots in the city of Baltimore. So now, last week, before we concluded the show, we mentioned about the press conference. It wasn't a press conference she had last Thursday. It was a press statement in which if she loved you and loved the citizens and loved those whose shoulders she stood on, black women who opened the door for her, black women such as Miss Victorine Adams, the wife of Mr. Willie Adams, of course, who was the man who ran the numbers in the black community, but he used what some call dirty money to clean it up, and he sent many to college, helped set many up in business. And so he used what some call dirty money and cleaned it up to help the illegit to become legit. And so because of Mr. Willie Adams and his wife, Miss Victorine Adams, who was the first woman elected to any office position, not the first black woman, brown woman, red woman, yellow woman, or white woman, but the first woman, because of Mr. Willie Adams and his power, because the unseen is more powerful than the seen. And what happens today, we got too many people that want to be the king and the queen, but they don't want to be the king and the queen maker. Now, what's important, we need king makers and queen makers. Not damn everybody wants to be out of a love for power as opposed to a power to love for our people and say, let's first have an agenda. Nobody's talking about an agenda because we got a bunch of pretenders. Mr. Willie Adams talking about an agenda. Others talk about agendas. The Jews don't be running around worrying about who's going to be in office of the mayor. They got an agenda. And whoever's in there is going to look out for the Jewish agenda. The Greeks don't be asking and talking and jockeying about who's going to be the man. They got an agenda. And whoever's in there is going to look out for the Greek agenda. As John Padarakis put his money on any of them that was in there. The late John Padarakis, the Greek mogul that owns H&S Bakery, owned Padarakis Development over there. That's what you have to do. So we got to grow as a people, not have this childlike mentality thinking that it's about a popularity contest. But it's about having an agenda and who is going to best represent our agenda when they get there. Don't say one thing when you're uptown and then say something else when you're downtown. Or don't say one thing when you're running and then when you get in there, you flip the script on us. See, if you do that to the Jews, it's going to be hell to pay. You do that to the Greeks and the Italians and the Irish Catholics, it's going to be a price to pay. But if you do that to us, what price do we pay? What price do they pay? One time, Barbara Hoffman did that to the Jews, and Barbara Hoffman is Jewish. The Jews told her she would never be in office again in Baltimore City. Barbara Hoffman is a lobbyist now. But every time a political seat comes open in the city council, right, or in the House of Delegates, you don't see no Jews talking about we're going to offer up Barbara Hoffman. And I got to say that because every time something happens in the black community with a black politician, it seems like the only person they can go to is Sheila Dixon. I'm like, what's wrong with this picture here? I mean, isn't Carl Stokes still around? Lawrence Bell still around? I mean, isn't Paula Branch Johnson still around? I mean, isn't somebody still around other than Sheila Dixon? Every time something happened with a black politician, I mean, they're not going to Larry Young, who got kicked out, tricked out, dicked out off. They definitely ain't going to him. They ain't going to find Nat Oakes, who was goofy under the kufi, up in some federal prison and ask him. But I mean, why do they keep bringing Sheila Dixon before the people? As if Sheila Dixon represents black excellence, man. This is what I'm talking about. We got to have black excellence. We can't lower the bar down to a shoestring. That they keep bringing Sheila Dixon before us. You turn on Morgan, who they bringing on? Sheila Dixon. You turn on Richard Square, they bringing on Sheila Dixon. I'm like, God damn, can we get somebody else on it? Can we get somebody else other than that, man? And that's the crime, right? And the travesty that they think that Sheila Dixon, somebody who got kicked out of office, not for just gift cards. Let's be clear about that. Let's be perfectly clear about that. Perjury and embezzlement is what got her removed. 2 cases. The other case, black media don't want to talk about. Sheila Dixon was voting on contracts like Kathy Pugh. And before the ink dried on the contract, Sheila Dixon was getting on the train, going on shopping sprees with Ron Lipscomb and these other developers. Dale Clark. I remember Dale at Bethel. He wasn't the sharpest knife in the drawer. Let's be clear about that. Dale Clark. Sheila Dixon's sister Janice Dixon. They had ghost offices with nothing but a phone and a fax machine in the offices, man. And they were getting contracts. And when Sheila Dixon's sister got in trouble, because, again, Sheila Dixon had to take the hit for her, what her sister was doing. But this is the sad part of what Sheila Dixon was doing. And that second case was going to be more tenacious regarding what Sheila Dixon was doing and who she was screwing. And she didn't want to have that come out publicly. Now, anytime she want to debate that, anytime Donnie Glover, any of those that support Sheila Dixon and be running around shouting and pouting about Sheila Dixon want to have a debate with Brother Muhammad, tell them call me. And we can debate it right here at this station if they want to debate it. We can debate it time, place, and space. But I warn you, as Dr. John Henry Clark, our great scholar, said, I only debate my equals. All others we gonna teach. So anytime you want to get your lesson and get that blessing, all you got to do, name the time, place, and space, Donnie Glover, or anybody else is running around here talking about Sheila tricking Dixon, man. That's the sad part, that we have to do better and demand better and command better. And don't think that somebody pulled their track card or somebody pulled their record, then all of a sudden you got to go around protection. Because I heard Sheila Dixon on with KY's white hair yesterday, chumping her and punking her, talking about, some of my friends said you was talking about me. You see that schoolyard, schoolgirl kind of BS right there, man? She going to tell her, some of my friends who monitor the station said you was, I talk about your ass all the time. Because what you did was to portray the trust of our people. And then to steal from the least of these. And then even after she got caught and she had to turn over all them gift cards and all them clothes that she bought, she called the state special prosecutor and wanted to know if she could go back and get them fur coats, man. She wanted to know if she can go back to Mano Schwartz. She wasn't even going to my man, the black fur, brother Salah Rahman. She wasn't going to brother Salah Rahman down there in Federal Hill. She was going to Mano Schwartz, buying them old cheap, ugly furs from Mano Schwartz. and them Jimmy Choo sandals. But this is what she was selling you out for. And Ron Lipscomb and Sheila Dixon is still working together. If you think I'm lying, go over to East Baltimore. All they did was switch from West Baltimore to East Baltimore. That Ron Lipscomb, who was the money man for John Padarakis, the Greek mogul. I talked to Ron Lipscomb relatives, Mr. Cotton, who worked under Cotton Construction, who worked under Mr. Willie Adams. He told me they was going to bid on a contract, $800,000 contract. The day they was looking for Ron Lipscomb, he was with John Padarakis, man. Now, the Greeks say you don't go against the family. The Jews say you don't go against the family. The Irish say you don't go against the family. The Hispanics say you don't go against the family. The Dominicans say you don't go against the family. But, again, the black man right here in Baltimore, soft, effeminized Ron Lipscomb, went against his own family, man, for John Padarakis. And all they did, they told Ron Lipscomb, who said on the witness stand that Sheila Dixon, he said the coochie wasn't worth the problem, man. I'm being blunt, and I'm really being a little PG-13 with what he said. He said the coochie wasn't worth the problem, okay? And Lipscomb was just sent out of town till things settled down. They brought him back, put him under John Hopkins, put him under Daniels over there at John Hopkins. He have a construction company called Ram Construction. They built that new elementary school over there in East Baltimore. Think I'm lying? We'll go over there and look at who they give credit to for building it. Sheila Dixon knows she was on Donnie Glover radio show one day and slipped up and talked about Ram Construction. Donnie Glover knows what I'm talking about. Others who claim to be DMV Daily News, they know what I'm talking about regarding Sheila Dixon. See, they selective in what they want to tell you. They got cut cards, but not me. I got cards that cut maybe, but I don't have no damn cut cards. So stop bringing Sheila Dixon before the black community, is what I'm saying. To say that Sheila Dixon represents black excellence, man. Mr. Willie Adams' wife, Victorine Adams, represented black excellence. Lena K. Lee represented black excellence. Miss Verda Welcome represented black excellence, man. Belinda Conaway represent. How come they don't go to Belinda Conaway? She's still in office. She the register of wills. You mean the only black woman they can find is Sheila Dixon? So again, man, it lets you see that this is what the white establishment and the Zionist Jews like Richard Scher that bring on Sheila Dixon, and the only other black woman they bring on is Kathleen. What's her name? Catalina Bird. She go to break, she got a long weave. She come back off break, she got a short weave, looking unbelievable when she on there with Richard Scher. Catalina Bird. She be on there, go with a long weave, go to commercial, come back, she got a short weave, man. These people don't speak for the masses of black people. But they don't want no straight black men on them shows, man. Most of them, all they want is effeminized men and black women who don't like straight black men. That's the bottom line. Notice who Richard Scher have on. Catalina Bird, right? Sheila Dixon, and that's it. He ain't bringing Belinda Conaway on. I don't think Jill Carter's going to get on there. And I guess they might bring Kathy Pugh on there now if she ever come out of hibernation. She ever come out of hibernation. But you tuned to the state of the city. So this has been the issue, man, that all of them come under Martin O'Malley. Sheila Dixon, Martin O'Malley's girl. It was so bad. Martin O'Malley's wife had to tell Sheila Dixon. I know y'all watching around the country seen The Wire. Them scenes with the city council. That's Sheila Dixon they portraying, man. And then if The Wire was that bad, I had to tell you one night when we went down there and demonstrated about The Wire. They were having a presentation at the Senator Theater. Man, we went down there because I was in Stop Snitching 2 with the brothers. We did it just like we're in the studio now. The brother videotaped it and said, Brother Muhammad, can I put it up? I said, use everything you want to use. That was Brother Bethea, Rodney Bethea, who was early morning media, who did Stop Snitching. Stop Snitching was all about not the ordinary citizen that see wrong and snitch. Stop Snitching was about the ones that's out there in the game doing the crime and the grime, doing the hurt, and as soon as they get popped, then they want to tell on everybody else. So the police department got Stop Snitching files. Why you think they killed Sean Suter, right? The city hall got Stop Snitching files. Why you think they told Kathy Pugh, you better resign because you can't rat out everybody else? They got Stop Snitching files in the suites bigger than the ones in the streets. So be clear about that. Crystal clear. William Torbett was another brother who was shot and killed 23 times. Officer William Torbett in 2011 for, again, cooperating and telling what was going on in the Baltimore City Police Department. But nevertheless, as I said before, Sheila Dixon, that was her in The Wire. And I'll come back on another day talk about how we shut down The Wire. David Simon, his mother, everybody that came out there to The Wire presentation that night outside of the center of the theater over there in East Baltimore. But Sheila Dixon, Stephanie Rawlins, Kathy Pugh, I mean, they all were traveling with Martin O'Malley, Ed Norris, Gary McElhaney, et cetera, et cetera. So these women, man, has been known to be turning more tricks than Harry Houdini and David Copperfield, Siegfried and Free. They ain't changed. That's all I'm saying. Stop putting lipstick on a pig, telling our people that these pigs are good for them. They've shown that they're not good for our people. They are compromising Cleopatras. And Cleopatra was one in our history who compromised so much with Julius Caesar and then Mark Antony for the benefit of she thought for her people. And of course, they continue to rape Africa. And she committed suicide when she realized that she had gave up, of course, her goods, and it didn't benefit her people at all. And this is what we have, these compromising Cleopatras, as opposed to being fighting Nefertitis and Nefertiris. And if time permits next week, I'll bring that book, The Isis Paper from Dr. Welsing, and read, I think, a portion where she talks about that in terms of throughout our history as a people. So that's what we must have if we're going to have women in office. Not compromising. Men in office, not compromising, likewise. Because it seems in this city now, the only type of men they want in office are effeminized men. If you ever noticed that with Brandon Scott. Effeminized men. And they tell me that the FBI got some files on them, so we're going to see what happens now. That they were talking about a city employee that recently downloaded 40,000 files of pornography, most of it child pornography. And I asked the question, was it Brandon Scott or was it Anthony McCarthy? We know Anthony McCarthy has those tendencies. He don't like me talking about that. But Anthony McCarthy was one of the ones who slid back into City Hall once Kathy Pugh got in trouble. He came out before and was down there working a $137,000 a year job. And he had to come out of there because, of course, he has these tendencies not to be able to keep his hands, right, or his mouth. and Dwight Pettit said he's not defending him this time. I'm telling you what I was told. Attorney A. Dwight Pettit said he's not defending you this time. So be clear about that, McCarthy. But the word got back to me that there were those that was talking about writing a op-ed or writing an editorial about them trying to keep the all-boys school open. And McCarthy, they were asking black men to contribute their name to the editorial to send regarding keeping the Banneker Blake Academy School open. And word got back to me that McCarthy said Daren Muhammad name shouldn't be there because I said him and Larry Young are pedophiles. The brother said, well, what part did he lie about? He said, what part did he lie about? Huh? And anytime you want to have that conversation, we can have that conversation. Let's be clear about that. All right? But again, you tuned to the State of City. Told you I was going to drop some bombs. Don't get alarmed. We're going to drop some bombs tonight. So again, man, we're talking about Baltimore City and your mayor last week who said she loved you, but didn't even have the audacity to come before you to apologize and ask your forgiveness and to announce that she was resigning. So your mayor, of course, who resigned last week, Kathy Pugh resigned. You see it right there in black and white. Kathy Pugh resigned. She didn't have the wherewithal or the love to come before you and resign. She had it penciled in the date on a letter. That the letter, according to, as I heard reporter Luke Broadwater on David Brown's show the other night on Morgan State University, letter written, crafted by Dr. Tyrone Powers, former FBI agent, man. Dr. Tyrone Powers, who was on the mass transition team. And he knew the history of Kathy Pugh and Sheila Dixon and Stephanie Rawlins. So I was trying to figure out, did they change or did he change? That's the question, man. Did they change or did he change? Or was he just faking it the whole time? So now he writes her resignation letter. She gives it to her lawyer, Steve Silverman. And notice these black women who told you they want equality, who told you they want diversity. All these nice terms that they use when they want to block straight black men out. They started talking about diversity. That means LGBTQ. That means look out for the gay rights right there. Equality. That means they ain't looking out for your rights no more, black folk. Let's be clear. Those are code words right there. Okay? So now she wants equality. But yet, when they get in trouble, they don't go get a black lawyer, black woman lawyer, right? Look who they went and got. She went and got Steve Silverman, a white man, a Jewish lawyer. When Sheila Dixon got in trouble, who did she go get? What's his name? Weiner? A Jewish man. A Jewish man. So practice what you preach. I guess they are practicing what they preach. That when they got in trouble, they didn't go get Billy Murphy or Silly Murphy. They didn't go get attorney A. Dwight Pettit. They didn't go get Warren Brown. They didn't go get black women attorneys in the city of Baltimore, right? They didn't go get attorney Jill Carter, who's an attorney. They went and got white men, the same white men that they got the black community running around saying the white men trying to take them down. They stopped creeping and sleeping with them white men, right? And come home to their people. Then they might be of some value in their later years, man. Not to run for office, but perhaps to be consultants to the young sisters that want to run for office so they know how to go down there and navigate the minefields that's down there. Navigate racism and white supremacy to be more effective in leading for our people. But as I always said, you can't make a trick or treat, man. And if you ever did make a trick or treat, as Malcolm X said, that'd be a revolutionary trick right there. You know what I mean? But you can't make a trick or treat. So if Sheila Dixon was a trick, and she was a trick out there in the streets when she was working on them corners for Quite Easy, You Don't Fool Me, if you know that history. His name was Pee Wee on the corner, all right? And she was working for Quite Easy, You Don't Fool Me on Pennsylvania Avenue. Stephanie Rollins was a trick. That's the ones that went to school with her at the University of Baltimore. It was so bad, when Martin O'Malley married Katie, Stephanie Rollins was talking about committing suicide. It was so bad that her father, Pete Rollins, told her she had to go and get married, and she married the big dummy, Kenny Rollins, or Kenny Blake. And I'm going to tell you about a conversation I had with him. The great Arnold Mitchell, the sensei, the karate champion here in Baltimore, was there with me. Ken Blake used to have a stand down at the Light Street Market down on Light Street, Cross Street Market. He had a smoothie stand. God is my witness. I'm in there with Arnold Mitchell one day. He said to me in front of Arnold Mitchell, my wife at that time, Stephanie Rollins Blake, they've since divorced, and I think she's come out the closet now. She's got a straight white woman as her girlfriend. But he said to me, my wife is the vice president of the city council, and she don't even help me with my permits, man. This is what he said in front of Arnold Mitchell. Then he said every weekend she goes out of town to New York. He's telling me this information. So he was telling what I had already been telling my people, man. That Sheila Dixon, the women in City Hall said they were coming down with Sade Bedingwa. Y'all remember the girl Sade Bedingwa, the story about her and Martin O'Malley. All that was true. Who worked at Channel 11. She was the adopted daughter of not Rudy Miller, but what's her name? Foster that worked at it was Rudy and the other one. Her name escapes me. Y'all know Edie House. She was the adopted daughter of Edie House. And they would come around during the week and ask women if they want to go to these conferences that they were having in New York, but they didn't have the conferences, man. They were going up for these orgies. Sexcapades is what they were doing. And they were handpicked women that they want to go up to New York with them, man. All of this came out. That Ed Norris, Martin O'Malley, what was the other guy? Gary McElhaney. They had the white girl, Katie Lehan. This is why I said the news, she crossed the line. They said she had Ed Norris and Gary McElhaney pictures on her desk, man. And they got rid of Katie Lehan at WJZ 13. And they said that she went to work for the CIA. And you know, ain't nothing on that white woman's face say CIA. Might say CIA, but ain't nothing on her face says CIA. That was the bottom line of what was going on between, again, and this is at the height of the time that the Dawson family members were killed. Other killings was going on, but your mayor, your city council representatives was going on these escapades with Martin O'Malley and the boys. They were tapping into the police benevolent fund to take your mayors out on these excursions and these trips and your city council personnel, man. But nobody wanted to talk about it. Check my record. That is clear that we talked about that. And so this is what we're looking at in the city of Baltimore. So now your mayor, rather than have the love to say she's going to resign, and this is why she resigned, she sends it out and basically, I think the press conference only lasted 2 minutes that the lawyer Steve Silverman had. But again, now more and more is coming out that she said it was only about one contract with the University of Maryland. Now come to find out it was Kaiser Permanente, right? Getting a city contract to provide insurance to city employees. Then it was a company out of Chicago tied to the Obamas. Ariel Investment got $40 million of the city's employees' pension. Notice she ain't give them her pension. She didn't give the police officers pension to play with. She didn't give them the firefighters pension to play with. She gave them city workers pension. $40 million at a time that many cities and states' pensions are in trouble right now. So she gave a company that she went to a conference that they sponsored, and she gave them $40 million and voted on the contract without disclosing the fact that she had been paid to go to one of their conferences. One, she shouldn't have voted on the contract. She should have recused herself. And then there were others that she voted on as well, such as Maryland Insurance Fund and others. And we pay the highest insurance rates in the city. That's why a lot of y'all be out there using your aunt address in the county. Some of your relatives live in Pennsylvania. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Y'all, you know what I'm talking about. I used to do it. I ain't lying. We had to do what we had to do in order to make a way. But this is the sad part. That this is what, again, your mayor did while she was a state senator, and now even as the mayor, looking out for, again, the developers and big business, the rich and the greedy over the needy. So this is what not about your mayor need, but more about greed. And she got caught. And it came out today that even some of these nonprofits that she sat on, that's why I keep saying that we can't let them put the clothes back on the empress, right? But this is an opportunity for black media, independent media, to do real research and say, what other boards does she sit on? And now, since Jack Young has been elevated to mayor, what other boards does he sit on? What board does Brandon Scott sit on? Has Jack Young voted on contracts for boards that he sat on? See, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. That's all. And then you name those who sit on the board as well, man. This is why you need a war room in order to teach the people how to do it, as our brother, the great scholar, Brother Steve Coakley, have always showed us to look at these interlocking relationships through boards, foundations, banks, developers, hospitals, historic families in these cities, fraternities, etc. And so that's why this is so important now. So now your mayor's gone, she resigns, but we still haven't seen her. So she don't want to face the music after being out there 4 years ago. Couldn't keep her off of the TV. Couldn't keep her off the radio. So much so that her sister at Morgan State University, I think her last name is Williams, she filed a lawsuit against Dwayne Wickham, who is the dean who runs Morgan State University radio. And she said that Dwayne Wickham was fudging numbers, and then she went further in the lawsuit, but KY's Whitehead not going to talk about that on her show. The lady, Ms. Williams, said that they were taking money from Kathy Pugh not to have debates and not to bring up certain information on the radio station. That's in the lawsuit. So again, man, that lets you see that black radio has been compromised, black radio has been co-opted, right? And black radio has been taken over. And that's the reality. Or they put their radio talk show host on those stations, right? That they control. And they know that certain information they're not going to bring up. Certain information they're not going to discuss. Certain information will be slanted. And this is what's happening with black radio in this city and nationwide for the most part. That certain information is not going to be brought up by black radio. Now, they'll hype you up with Trump, the boogeyman coming. I mean, Trump is their shot of Viagra, Cialis, Extends. They can't get it up in the bedroom, sisters. Just bring up Trump. They might get it up. You know what I mean? But that's their shot of Viagra is Donald Trump. Extends Donald Trump. Cialis Donald Trump. They can't talk about nothing else. They're going to talk about Donald Trump for the most part, for sure. But now, as we're talking about, Jack Young is elevated. And did you notice in the last 24 hours, all the communication in City Hall has been down, man? They said that it was a ransom spyware. Let me see if I got the article. But all the, I didn't bring it in, but all the, and this again goes back to Stephanie Rollins when she was the mayor. The company that she was trying to sell the voiceover communication through her technology department was Digicon. And one of the guys that was tied to Digicon was a guy named Rico Singleton, and he had one of them ghost offices as well. You can Google Digicon, Digicon. Now, they got the con part right. I don't know about the Digi part. But we're in a major city, and Jack Young's first full day and Brandon Scott's first full day as city council president, their entire communication system is down. The only thing that's up in City Hall is 911 and 311. So those that went down there to get permits, those that had to pay water bills, those that maybe had a car impounded, and you trying to get your car, you can't get your car out right now, man. So They're not even asked. They even had a press conference to tell the citizens that this is what's going on. I had people inside of City Hall that called me and said, man, you can't make this stuff up. That you got, they call it a ransom spyware. They got IT companies down there. But again, the IT company, we have to find out, is it Digicon? And with Digicon, what are they doing? Because you got to have a backup system, man. That if somebody can hack your system, where's your backup system? And where's the backup system to the backup system? That something like this could happen. And again, you reduce to basically 18th century style government for the most part, except 911 and 311. And citizens that trying to go and pay a water bill, you can't even pay your water bill today. You trying to pay whatever kind of bill you got to pay. I had a brother say he was trying to go down and get a permit to put a dumpster in front of his house, in front of one of his properties. Can't get it done. Somebody else car, don't let your car get towed right now. And again, you gotta, if your car get towed, you gotta go to work tomorrow. You're gonna be out of luck, man. You be calling Uber or Lyft. That's it. And they said that the system might be down. I heard them say at least 5 to 7 days, bro. So you saying 5 to 7 business days or 5 to 7 days? And who's responsible for that? You can't just say it was a hack. Because, I know they'll blame Trump. They might say the Russians did it. They in that time of year, they in there thinking right now. Trump did it. The Russians did it. You say, but Digicon's supposed to have a backup system in case something like this happens, right? So where's the backup? And now the FBI is investigating. Some are asking, could this be an inside job? That perhaps they're trying to stop and block the FBI from downloading computer files and computer information. All of this now taking place 2 weeks after the FBI raid, 1 week after your mayor resigned. Now all of a sudden your city systems are down. And poor Jack Young, right? That he clearly looks like he's in over his head, man. Much as I respect him, but he clearly looks like he's in over his head, and Brandon Scott. And then the first thing Jack Young does is he knew that the mayor was resigning. He's in Detroit, man. What kind of signal is that sending? You would have thought that he would have sent a video message to those in Detroit to say, I can't join you in Detroit because I'm here in Baltimore. I'm leading from within. But no, he was in Detroit and had a video feed sent to us from Detroit. I mean, I was insulted. He said, what, are you going to be a virtual mayor? What the hell is going on here, man? You're going to be a real mayor. You got to get in where you fit in where you get in. You're supposed to be here to convey to the citizens that I'm going to lead you through whatever we're about to go through. But he come on, man. Then when the word came down, the mayor had resigned. None of the members of the city council had a press conference. You know who had a press conference? The city solicitor, Andre Davis, a non-elected official having a one-man press conference, man. I mean, nobody went up and snatched the microphone out of his hand and say, you can't have no press conference. The voters didn't elect you. What are you having this one-man press conference for, man? This is the same city solicitor who's supposed to be the lawyer for the mayor to make the mayor look good, but he was reading over he should have read these contracts. If he was as good about reading all them contracts the mayor was signing on before she signed on and voted on, she wouldn't have been in this condition. The city solicitor job is to make, kind of like the fall guy. I'm the unknown stuntman that make Eastwood look so fine. You know what I mean? The city solicitor job is to make the mayor look good. I don't care if it is putting lipstick on the pig. You gonna say, we're gonna put some lipstick on that pig because we're gonna make it look good. But he's the city lawyer. He's the mayor's lawyer. But he's the same city solicitor, Andre Davis, Boulay, who said to all of the victims of the Gun Trace Task Force, said to all of the victims of the crimes of the Baltimore City Police Department, those that have been killed, those that have been injured, those who have been maimed, those brothers who are still languishing in jail due to the crimes of the Gun Trace Task Force, that Marilyn Mosby didn't give a list to the governor to pardon or to vacate death sentences, but yet she running around here acting like she concerned about those in jail for marijuana charges. But she haven't lifted a finger to help those in jail from the Gun Trace Task Force. So watch Marilyn Mosby, man, because her treasurer, let me be clear with you. So what we're looking at is a reshuffling of the deck right now, reshuffling of the cards. And Martin O'Malley said, okay, plan A didn't work, we're going to come with plan B. Plan B didn't work, we coming with plan C. So Sheila Dixon is an extension of Martin O'Malley. Stephanie Rawlins is an extension of Martin O'Malley. Catherine Pugh is an extension of Martin O'Malley. Brandon Scott is an extension of Martin O'Malley. Marilyn Mosby is an extension of Martin O'Malley. If you don't believe me, her treasurer name is Martin Cadigan. He's the treasurer for Martin O'Malley. If you don't believe me, Google Martin Cadigan. Martin Cadigan is the treasurer, long-term bag man for Martin O'Malley. Now, how can he be Martin O'Malley's treasurer and be Marilyn Mosby treasurer at the same time? Who is he really working for? See, that's Martin O'Malley's bag man. That's her treasurer, man. So as Malcolm X said, what you think is straight is more crooked than a pretzel. But if you don't believe me, Google Martin Cadigan, Cadogan, Martin Cadigan, who came out of the law firm of Brown and Sheehan. And Brown and Sheehan was a law firm that merged with Billy Murphy law firm. So it might let you see why Billy Murphy got that case of the Gray family. Brown and Sheehan. And there's so much more I could tell you about Martin Cadigan. But I'm just being clear with you that Martin Cadigan is the bag man for Marilyn Mosby. He's the treasurer for Marilyn Mosby. Then you got to look at who's Brandon Scott's treasurer. See, you got to look at that because all of that is inexplicably tied together. They just playing 3-card Monty, 3-card O'Malley on the people right now. You know what I mean? Make you think you getting something new. That's what they're doing. And Brandon Scott, as I said, came out of that Mentor Rising program, which was nothing but a bunch of homosexuals running that program down there. Bunch of sodomites, all right? And then Jamal Moses, who they ran Moses first for that second district seat. And I talked to Nicholas Diadamo, a Greek white guy. He told me what Martin O'Malley was trying to do to him because Diadamo had went against Martin O'Malley. And so O'Malley was running people against Diadamo to the point that Diadamo said he wasn't running. And then that's how Brandon Scott got in there. Okay? See, I ain't new to this. I'm true to this. As I said before, been there, done that. Got the t-shirt, the hat, probably the underwear to match, man. All right? But nevertheless, this is the reshuffling of the deck of the chairs on the Titanic right now is what they're doing. So Martin O'Malley wants to have his man, Brandon Scott, city council presidency. That's all. Jim Smith is up out of there. Right? William Cole is up out of there as the head of the BDC. So these are Martin O'Malley's fingerprints, man, on your city council still. And if the media was honest, they know this. I heard a brother, DMV Daily, not going to mention his name. I heard him on, and he was talking about Brandon Scott. All he had to do was go one step further, as I'm doing, and say Brandon Scott comes out of the O'Malley corral, like Sheila Dixon. It was so bad when Sheila Dixon was running, when Kathy Pugh was running, Stephanie Rawlins was running. I had never seen black people use an Irishman placards in his signs, man. Their signs was that Irish green, bruh, to show you that O'Malley controlled them Negroes, man. That's what he did with them. So again, that's the power of the Irish Catholic Jesuit mob in Baltimore City. And if you don't believe me, get the book Jewish Baltimore. Martin O'Malley married into the Kern family for just that purpose. When you know the history of the Kern family, Curran, the Kern family. All right. So now is the reshuffling of the cards to give the perception that it's going to be something new in Baltimore City. And if it is, you can't have the same wheels out of, or same cogs coming out of that same wheel of Martin O'Malley. Brandon Scott's not new. Brandon Scott was out there in the street with Stephanie Rawlins when she said she gave the rioters room to, of course, destroy property. Brandon Scott was out there with Munir Baha when they were pushing that 300-man march, and they marched and started up there in front of the Muslim Culture Center. And what came out of that 300-man march? Absolutely nothing. So now they said, well, let's switch it up. We'll come with 300 gangster, or we'll come with ceasefire. So this is all part of the game that they play on the people. And then after Jack Young, first day that he was in Detroit, he comes back. There's a shooting that takes place in Baltimore City. Now, never mind, Brandon Scott ain't mentioned nothing about the mayor and corruption in the suites. See, notice what they're not talking about. They didn't start there in the suites. They didn't say we're going to clean City Hall up. No, they diverted the people's attention to start talking about crime in the streets. But crime in the streets is a result of the crimes going on up in the suites. So they diverted the people's attention away from Kathy Pugh, away from the crimes that they may be a part of as far as boards that they may sit on, right? They started talking about shootings that was going on in Baltimore City. Never mind, you don't really see no whole lot of videotape. You don't see no still photos. They just tell you that, right? A real media going out and get the information, man. They tell you this, man. I mean, I've seen shootings up and down Evanston. I've seen blood running in the street, man. I ain't seen no blood, nothing when they tell you that these victims are here. So you say, where are these phantom victims they pushing on the people right now? But if we play it straight, the first community, Jack Young comes back last week in the rain, walking around with a green poncho on, man. What in the hell he thought he was? What's that movie, Glass? What's that movie with Bruce Willis? Glass, Unbreakable, walking around with a green poncho on, man. Looking like a fool with a green poncho. He got a bald head, but he got a poncho on, man. What are you covering up? You ain't got nothing up there. But to go into, check out the community they went into. Carrollton Ridge community. Now, some of y'all might have Negronesia, not Brother Muhammad. Go back and pull up a little girl who was shot and killed in the Carrollton Ridge community by the name of Raven Wyatt. W-Y-A-T-T. Raven Wyatt was shot and not killed, shot in the head in the Carrollton Ridge community. And who was the mayor at that time? Sheila Dixon. She walked the streets of Carrollton Ridge and said, this community will not be neglected ever, ever, ever again. Go down to Carrollton Ridge and see what it looks like, man. Carrollton Ridge, a stone throw away on Monroe Street, stone throw away from the stadium, and Sheila Dixon neglected that neighborhood. She lied and said that it wouldn't happen. You can pull up Raven Wyatt. I remember it like it happened yesterday. And all of them went down to that community. So it took a shooting of a baby for the mayor to visit that community, and it took if we play it straight, it took a shooting of 2 babies for Jack Young to make it down there, because he never made it down there as a city council president. And Kathy Pugh never got down there. It's a stone's throw away from what used to be Montgomery Ward, and now I think United Way is in that building there, man. So that community has been neglected for years. Carrollton Ridge. I used to go into the community because one of our holistic doctors, before, of course, the powers that be and the wicked forces moved to shut him down, and that was Dr. Ian Noel, whose office was there on South Pulaski Street. So that community has been neglected for years, Carrollton Ridge, man. After Sheila Dixon, and I thought it was interesting, they brought Sheila Dixon back out on KY's Whitehead yesterday. Yes, she gonna ask her, but see, this is why I say KY's Whitehead on Morgan State University, she's new to this. Some of these other fake activists, they new to this. Daren Muhammad, they new to this, man. They can run that BS on him, but they can't run that on this Muhammad. So I know about Carrollton Ridge community and how that community's been neglected for years, man. All this money that's come into that city and to this city, and they've neglected that community there in Carrollton Ridge. So the blood, if we play it straight, the blood of those children, the blood of anyone that's been killed down there in that community is on the hands of your former mayor, your previous mayor, Sheila Dixon, because while she was going on shopping sprees and going to get a new pair of them Jimmy Choos, children were being shot. Men and women were being shot, and they didn't go to see about them. So now here's Jack Young talking about that community down there. But go see the trash that's piled up in the streets, in the alleys, on the front steps down there, man. Go see how that area has been neglected for years down there. So again, that's an indictment on the city leadership. And then you ask, who's the council person in that district? Isn't that John Bullock? And wasn't that Nat Oaks district? Think about that, man. So for some of you be talking about Nat Oaks, who was goofy under the kufi, right? As we told you, right? Now he Rat Oaks sitting up in that jail. Well, he shredded wheat. I don't think he oats no more. He shredded wheat right now. But they neglected that community for years, man. So we're going to have to hold Jack Young feet to the fire. And Brandon Scott, my conversation with him was about a little brothers up in Parkside Warrior football team. One of the best football teams in the city, in the state, in the country, man. Shout out to brother Dennis Harding, a brother who does good job, Coach Harding and all them coaches and parents up there. But I said to Jack Young, said to Brandon Scott, if you cared about them young brothers, they've been winning city championships and state championships for years, man. But guess what? They can't even get lights on the field up there, man. Some of y'all can't even fathom what I'm talking about. You can't get lights on a football field for children, man. And you running around here talking about what you're going to do for other people? That the parents and the coaches and assistant coaches and the other parents got to take their cars and turn one car in one direction and face the other car and put the lights on the field from their cars so the children can have practice, man. This in Baltimore City. Now you go to all these other surrounding counties in the state of Maryland, they got lights on their football field, baseball field, basketball courts, and everything else. Our children got to be some damn bionic robots, man, in order to be able to just get lights on their football field. But this Brandon Scott saying he care. Jack Young saying he care, man. But you can't get lights on your field. That's why we couldn't have Friday night lights on our high schools for years, because none of our high school had lights on the field. Great high schools like Poly didn't have them. Dunbar didn't have them. Carver still don't have them. Walbrook didn't have them. Forest Park didn't have them. Northwestern didn't have them. You name it, none of them had them. Until recently, where Poly was the first one that had them. Then City obviously got embarrassed. They raised money to put lights over there. Then Under Armour put lights on Dunbar's, gave them a whole new field. Then what was the former owner of the Ravens, Modell? He put up money for Mervo. Mervo had them after Poly. Then all the other schools got them. But our children, man, Man, Riri, Nene, and them little Mookie, Boogie, Poogie, all the ones you say you care about, they can't. These are great young brothers, potentially. They can't get lights on the football field, man. Go out Cherry Hill, it's the same damn thing. But yet, when the whites come in the city and they want to play rugby, the police department will go get floodlights from the communities that they have and put them on the field so the white boys can play rugby, so the Hispanics can play soccer, man. Now go down to Doggy Park down in Patterson. Don't they have lights down at Doggy Park? Go out the zoo. Don't they have lights at the zoo? You'd be better taking your children out the zoo to play football and baseball and basketball. So this is the message that's being sent by these politicians. And I told Brandon Scott, man, you care about the children, get some lights put on the field. You could go over to Giants because the field is across from Giants up there on St. Clair. You could say to Giants, they could put up $5,000, all the black people that shop in Giants. See, it does no good for you to be in a position of power if you can't execute power for the least of them in this city, man. Then unless you see what they really are or what they really are not. That's the bottom line. So you tune to the state of the city. I'll come back, man, and go deeper in that next week. This last half hour before we open up the lines, man, and I have a lot I done already talked about. I'm not going to talk about this Mary Bubala in terms of her comments when she asked KY's Whitehead. I'm trying to figure out who made KY's Whitehead the spokesperson for the black community. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Who said KY's Whitehead speaks for all black men and black women in this city? She don't speak for me. She don't even speak to me, man. Let's be clear about that. So I didn't have a problem with what Mary Bubala said, because I know them general managers and others got to write them questions down. My only thing was let it all play out so we can hear how they really think is what I'm saying. Don't cut them off, as Dr. Francis Cress Welsing said. If white people want to help black people, the best thing they could do, as Dr. Welsing said, tell black people what white people talk about when there ain't no black people around. That's the best thing you can do if you want to have good race relations, man. You seen them scenes on Dave Chappelle when the black man get off the bus and what all the white folks start talking about. So as Dr. Francis Cress Welsing said, if white people really want to help black people, tell black people what white people talk about when there's no black people around, man. So again, I ain't spending my time talking about Mary Bubala, period, as far as her being suspended or fired, because she'll land on her feet, man. But I know that for the Jewish women, they're going to have KY's Whitehead and any of those that work to remove her, you're going to be in their crosshairs, that's for sure. You will be in their crosshairs, all right? So now, as we're looking at these stories, I want to talk about, before we open up the lines, because again, as I said before, this whole issue of Digicon, Baltimore City government is literally shut down, far as you can't access nothing there, man. I called downtown this morning. I just wanted to see if they were still up. I was told this is a state of urgency. I don't want you to call Homeland Security any state of emergency, but a state of urgency with what's going on right now. But I want to eventually, probably next week, because I'm going to open up the lines now as I promised, but I want to eventually talk about this whole issue of Minister Farrakhan, peace be upon him, who will be 86 years old this Saturday, man. So why does Facebook discriminate against an elder? Why do they discriminate against an 86-year-old black man? What threat is an 86-year-old black man to Facebook? And Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg, who some say he's a Rothschild or a Rockefeller, and of course Facebook has always been controlled by the CIA. Used to be at a time you didn't want the CIA listening to your conversations and knowing your information in the 60s. Now some of y'all can't wait to give them your information. You tell them everything A through Z, man. That's a smooth trick they fooling on the people, man. So, nevertheless, as we said, myself, Brother Irritated Genie, Dr. Randy Short, who started the petition, He's going to join me on the State of the City Saturday. But again, we said that after they could begin to censor and ban the alt-right, which they came after Molly Yiannopoulos, Alex Jones, and I debated Malik Fuyu Shabazz, about the authenticity of Alex Jones' documentary 1 and 2 Obama Deception. You can go and pull that up. That Alex Jones, for his people, has been one of them early warning systems for his people. I know he's been a Zionist shield, but Alex Jones has had value for his people. And what you got to do is you cross-reference his information. But when you go back and look at that debate I did with Malik Fuyu Shabazz, and Malik gonna say he don't know about no trilateral commission and Council on Foreign Relations and Skull and Bones, and he don't know about the Club of Rome, and he don't know about Fritz Springmeier's book, 13 Bloodlines of the Illuminati. For Malik to say that was to say that he never listened to Daren Muhammad, that he never listened to, again, Minister Farrakhan, that he would say that he didn't know about those groups, that they didn't exist, that he didn't know about the Bilderbergers, and Steve Coakley taught us about all of that. Then that lets me know that Malik had either been compromised or was an agent the entire time. That's the bottom line. You can go back and pull that up, that debate I did with Malik Fuyu Shabazz, because he didn't fool me when he was talking about he owed his recruitment and increase of his recruitment of the new Black Panther Party to the presidency of Barack Obama. And I said, if you needed Obama to get recruitments and new members, that means you wasn't doing your job. That means you wasn't doing no work, man. If you were on the shoulders of Dr. Khaled and others, then again, that's an indictment on you. But now, here's the ban on Minister Farrakhan. And it comes right after the Mueller report is released, so I don't think that's no coincidence. Because Minister Farrakhan didn't come out in 2016 against, per se, Donald Trump's candidacy. Let's be clear about that. But it was Molly Yiannopoulos, Alex Jones, and the alt-right, Roger Stone, who saw the elevation of Donald Trump. When the mainstream news media, black, brown, red, yellow, and white, they were pretty much assured that Hillary Clinton was going to be the president. They didn't see Donald Trump coming through those other 17 candidates that was running. And so now I'm almost certain it's due to the presidential election coming up in 2020 that Alex Jones had to be banned now, that Molly Yiannopoulos had to be banned now, that the alt-right or the alt-white has to be banned now. Minister Farrakhan has to be banned now. And that's what you got to look at. But Minister Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam, who have independence, should have had our own news media, our own social news media platform, not having to use Mark Zuckerberg, not having to use Facebook, but look at other social media platforms that we could create ourselves coming out of the Million Man March, coming out of, in the spirit of the Million Man March, to be able to have our own social media platforms so that if somebody wanted to cut you off, as Colonel Muammar Gaddafi talked about, with us having our own satellite, so we didn't have to go through Europe to be able to talk to one another in Africa, that now we got to mature as those who are inside the Nation of Islam and those who are not members of the Nation of Islam, but are sympathetic and understand the importance of black nationalism, understands the importance of black Pan-Africanism, to be able to have those same type of setups that Alex Jones had. Those same types of news media, news formats that Alex Jones had, that he grew in popularity. Not saying all his information was 100% exact and criss-crack, but you got to cross-reference the information of any source. But I'm bound by the principles I stand on, right, to listen to the truth, whether it comes from a white man, a black man, brown man, red man, yellow man, or white man. Don't make a difference. Truth is truth. You cross-reference the information is what we have to do. But we're in a time now where they will begin to try to ban, of course, as many of us as they can. That's why what we're doing here is so important, to support black independent media. But we warned you that this day would be coming, because they don't want no criticism in terms of the Zionists of Israel. They don't want you talking about and supporting the boycott, divestment, and sanction, the BDS movement against that apartheid regime. That anyone who teaches that, anyone who speaks to that, anyone who goes forward with that, that now under the legislation that they've been trying to push for, they want to charge you with a hate crime. Same thing on the level as they doing with this issue of you not wanting your daughter to say she's a boy, or not wanting your son to say he's a girl. That they now have legislation to say that is teaching hate so that they can fine you, right? And then, of course, arrest you or charge you with a misdemeanor. This is what's coming to America right now. They've done it in Europe. So it's coming to America that they want these. This is the violation of your First Amendment. I got this clip as I open up the lines at 404-436-1277. Got this clip of President John F. Kennedy talking about that. Let me see if I can share this with you. It's probably about 5 minutes, and then we're going to open up the lines at 404-436-1277. If you got a thought, question, comment, if you want to comment, of course, on Facebook, you can do so. But let me see if I got this clip, and we'll share a few minutes of this as he talked about the importance of our First Amendment rights, but also he was talking about secret societies. And this is one of the speeches that many said got President John F. Kennedy assassinated by Israel or by, of course, those who were tied to the Federal Reserve Bank, because John Kennedy signed Executive Order 11110. You can pull that up. He signed it on June the 4th, 1963. He was assassinated November 22nd, 1963, for signing the Executive Order 11110 to take the power of the money away from the Federal Reserve and put it back in the hands of the U.S. Treasury. But most of the American people do not know that, and they still, of course, believe the lie that a lone assassin assassinated John F. Kennedy, and nothing could be further from the truth. So let me see if I can give you a few minutes of this speech. John F. Kennedy talking to the American people regarding these secret societies and those that would seek to take away your rights under the auspices of freedom of speech. Listen to this, and we'll be back with more of the State of the City. See if we got it here. We can give it to you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweigh the dangers which are cited to justify. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. No president should fear public scrutiny of his program, for from that scrutiny comes understanding, and from that understanding comes support or opposition, and both are necessary. I am not asking your newspapers to support an administration, but I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people. For I have complete confidence in the response and dedication of our citizens whenever they are fully informed. I not only could not stifle controversy among your readers, I welcome it. This administration intends to be candid about its errors. For as a wise man once said, an error doesn't become a mistake until you refuse to correct it. We intend to accept full responsibility for our errors, and we expect you to point them out when we miss them. Without debate, without criticism, no administration and no country can succeed, and no republic can survive. That is why the Athenian lawmaker Solon decreed it a crime for any citizen to shrink from controversy. And that is why our press was protected by the First Amendment, the only business in America specifically protected by the Constitution, not primarily to amuse and entertain.
That's right.
Not to emphasize the trivial and the sentimental, not to simply give the public what it wants, but to inform, to arouse, to reflect, to state our dangers and our opportunities, to indicate our crises and our choices, to lead, mold, educate, and sometimes even anger public opinion. This means greater coverage and analysis of international news, for it is no longer far away and foreign, but close at hand and local. It means greater attention to improved understanding of the news, as well as improved transmission. And it means, finally, that government at all levels must meet its obligation to provide you with the fullest possible information outside the narrowest limits of national security. And so it is to the printing press, to the recorder of man's deeds, the keeper of his conscience, the courier of his news, that we look for strength and assistance, confident that with your help, man will be what he was born to be, free and independent.
That's right. There was a speech from, again, the late President John F. Kennedy talking about, again, and warning the American people of what we were seeing with those slowly using what we call Fabian fascism to take away more and more of your rights, similar to that old Target commercial, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, to see how much you will adjust to or how much you will allow to take place. So this is a purge that's taking place on Facebook. I'll come back next week and go deeper into that. But once they can go after this alt-right, once they can go after the Muslims, right, then they'll go after Christians. They'll go after others as well, as we warned you that this day was coming and is now coming to America in terms of those forces that are using this as an opportunity to silence, debate, dissent, because they don't want to have the conversations. In the 80s, the last independent type radio TV show we had on it, we had that kind of conversation with the Phil Donahue show, a white man. Today, you can't have them kind of conversations on no talk radios on television. Reality or some that claim they're not reality. It's all been seduced and reduced to reality TV for the most part now. So even the news you watching, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock news. So again, you tune to the State of the City special edition once again, Radio on Fire. We're going to come to the lines, 404-436-1277. If you got a thought, question, comment, here's your opportunity. Get in where you fit in where you get in before the show come to an end. If you want to get in on the conversation, if you got a thought on Facebook, of course, my brother Diamond will read your thought. Or, of course, if you have an analysis, got to be a short one just due to the time tonight. Went a little longer than I wanted to go before we open up the line, so I apologize because, you know, I'm a man of few words. With that, let me come to the line. We got a call on the line?
No, but you got a lot of comments.
No calls on the man. Y'all better light up these lines if you want to get in on the conversation. 404-436-1277. But let's start with the comments, my brother.
When you talk about the abandoned homes throughout the city.
Abandonmentiums. That's part of land banking that's going on. This is what I was talking about. Hopkins has been doing it in East Baltimore. University of Maryland's doing it in West Baltimore. Sinai's doing it in Northwest Baltimore. You go over to Fulton Avenue, Monroe Street, Bon Secours, which is now being bought by Sinai. Check that out now. The Jews are now coming out of Northwest, but that used to be when you go study that history. Go get the book, Jewish Baltimore. You'll see it. So it's now hospitals and universities engaging in these abandoned buildings. Then the city will say you can get the whole block for $1, is what they're doing. Sheila Dixon sold what used to be the city garage over on Dickman Place off of Hanover Street They sold that to the aquarium. I thought the aquarium was a city-owned business. They sold it to the aquarium for $1. They moved the city garage from Dickman Place and moved them over on Biddle Street where Ron Lipscomb used to be, over there on East Biddle Street, 3600 block of East Biddle Street. So this has been going on under Martin O'Malley, going on under Sheila Dixon, under Stephanie Rollins, Kathy Pugh. And once they do this, then they don't pay no taxes on this. So this is why the city looks the way it looks, because again, the rich and the greedy don't want to pay their fair share, and it's always on the back of the poor and the middle class in Baltimore City. And crime, of course, takes place around those abandoned buildings. How many times we finding bodies in the building, right? Women being pulled in the building, lured in the building, and raped in those buildings as well. And that's why you got to get rid of these empty buildings, board them up, or stone them up for the most part, because this leads to crime. Or that could be a job that you could have for people to go door to door to check these buildings so that you'll know whether anybody's living in these buildings or not, or somebody is standing in these buildings as well, using what we call abandonmenium. So good question there.
Also, who can we trust to have our best interests at heart? How do we get out of this mess?
Who do we have in terms of our best interest?
Baltimore.
Well, you got to look in the mirror. First and foremost, you got to have your best interest. And we got to, again, I think, be able to watch the people, and know who are those that have who has a protracted track record of serving our people. And I think that's what we got to ask, if those who are in elected office or those who claim that they're activists who are really out serving the people for the most part. And, you know, if it's somebody that you got a question about, you come to Brother Muhammad, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to tell you the truth. Regardless, let me say this. Brother called me the other day, asked me about Will Hanna. No disrespect. I said to the brother, whatever you do with Will Hanna, get it in front. I know Will Hanna from Up Park Heights. Will Hanna was in Terra Cafe last year, a year and a half ago. The feds came in Terra Cafe at lunchtime and picked Will Hanna up. He tried to run out the back door. To this day, Will Hanna ain't apologized to the people that was in Terra Cafe or to Brother Terrence, the owner of Terra Cafe, to tell them what happened, that the feds came and got him in 6 cars, and they told Brother Terrence, we're not going to take him out the front because we don't want your customers to see him coming out the front in handcuffs. We're going to take him out the back. So when the brother called me the other day and asked me about Will Hanna, I said, watch him. That's all. Whatever you do with him, get it up front. That's the bottom line, but watch him. So it ain't nothing personal. It's principle. And I said to the brother, I'll tell you what I told you about Will Hanna in front of Will Hanna. That's how I am. So with that, any other questions, my brother?
Yes. I don't know if you're going to like this one.
Come on.
Facebook bans dangerous individuals and organizations that engage in violence or have an ideology that attacks individuals based on race, religion, ethnicity, or sexual orientation. Facebook
don't want discussion and critical discussion. As you just heard what a white man, President Kennedy, said himself. That's what it is. Minister Farrakhan, Nation of Islam, they don't have a track record. Minister Farrakhan, 86 years old. You can't tell me one person that he's harmed or killed in his words, his deeds, his actions. You can't show me a member of the Nation of Islam that's ever attacked a synagogue, attacked a homo, a promo, or anybody else. You understand what I'm saying? But I can show you the history of members of the Jewish community, particularly one who was with the Jewish Defense League by the name of Herb Rubin, who dressed up as a Muslim and was defacing a synagogue. Him and his son, when he got caught, they put Herb Rubin in jail and killed him in jail so he couldn't tell the story. Every time somebody's been found defacing a synagogue, most of the time it's been a member of the Jewish community dressed up as a Arab or dressed up as a Muslim until they get caught. So a lot of times that's an old game, to create a problem, to get the reaction in order to get the solution. And one of the things that came out that Facebook was working with Morris Dees, the head of the Southern Poverty Law Center, and they were the ones that was deciding who should be able to be on Facebook or not be on Facebook. And all of that just came out recently regarding Morris Dees. I had to come back on another day and lay all of that out. But it's been the Southern Poverty Law Center, a bunch of rich Zionist millionaires sitting back working with Facebook, determining who should be able to post and who shouldn't be able to post on Facebook. And that shouldn't be allowed. Next question, my brother. I'm sorry.
Is Facebook now the new COINTELPRO?
Absolutely. CIA, as I said before, because normally people would never give you their information like that before. Now people give you everything just to be able to go and post, and people tell their whole life story on Facebook. It's become an altered reality. It is the Matrix, as we call it. And so some people don't think they can live without being on Facebook. They're recording everything they do, morning, noon, and night, and especially the young people that have got sucked into it. And so it's become the matrix for them. And so, again, we got to find other platforms but to be able to communicate and organize our people and not have to use just Facebook alone to be able to do what we have to do. Next question.
He said, it's more a statement. This is one real roasting season, Brother Muhammad.
Yes, sir. It's definitely one real roasting season. My motto last year was make them all come clean in 2018, but I think we still got more coming clean in 2019 as well. But we got to put together a real team in 2019 because this is an opportunity for us to organize. When we see groups of whites fighting on a national level, then as the great Kwame Ture Stokely Carmichael said, he did a interview, and he was talking about how Adolf Hitler, due to the rise of Hitler and the fight in Germany and Europe, that it led, because it decimated the numbers of America and Europe, that African countries got their independence right after World War II. So we got to be studiers of history also. And if you got a group of whites fighting Trump, then we should be organizing our people right now. Let white folk fight white folk. We should be using this opportunity to organize ourselves. That's all I'm saying. That's it.
He said he talked about the black mayors, but the white mayor did the same thing.
The white mayors did the same thing. And you had white mayors like Martin O'Malley that should have went to jail. What protected Martin O'Malley was the Kennedys in Washington, D.C., and his father-in-law, Joe Kern. But this time around, he may not be protected. The fight is between a group of whites that don't want Martin O'Malley and O'Malley cogs in the wheel. Why you think Peter Francho's been saying what he been saying, that he don't want the same people that represents the machine trying to run for mayor in Baltimore City? You got to listen to what Peter Francho is saying. This is a fight between two groups of white folk. And we should be using it as an opportunity to organize our people, not take sides with people like Brandon Scott that's a part of Martin O'Malley's cog in the wheel. See, this is what has to happen, but you got to have people that have fresh eyes to be able to see the fight that's taking place right now. And that's what's going on. That's why Jim Smith left. That was O'Malley's Teflon leprechaun too right there. That's why William Cole left in Baltimore City. So this is a fight between groups of white folk, and Kathy Pugh might have got caught in the fight. But you got to know what side you on. You can't be, as we say, you can't be the middleman, because you know what happens to Mr. and Mrs. in between. You can't be in between. You got to know what side you on. So again, it's an opportunity for us to be organizing our people. And that's taking place on a national level and a local level as far as these fights that's going on right now. Next question.
Said that Pugh allowed herself to be used, and now she is the fall guy / girl distraction while other hijackers are sliding right by.
Well, again, where's the black media? If the black media can stop having a romance and bromance with Pew, they can go and look at all the whites and come back and report who else was getting paid and who else should be indicted. The FBI just put up a billboard. Public corruption, call us, right? Right there on the corner by the Charles Theater. Call the FBI if you know who else is guilty, if they're a white politician, right? Or anything else, white businessman. FBI said give them a call. They looking right now. So you know they looking if your city services is shut down and you can't even access online your city government right now. So clearly this is bigger than Jack Young, Brandon Scott, when somebody can hack into this one of the largest cities in the country, their system, and the system is shut down. But as I always say with Kathy Pugh, Sheila Dixon, Stephanie Rollins, first they co-op you, then when they finish with you, they gonna cold drop you. So ain't nothing changed. That's the bottom line. But you can't be that dumb at 69 as you was at 29. But as Dick Gregory said, if you was dumb at 29, if nothing happens that's introduced to you as Nat Oaks, and we saw with Nat Oaks, he was dumb at 29 and then dumb at 69. We don't need people like that to be in no positions of power, thinking for our people or speaking for our people, man. Let them die off. Let's get better vegetation of young people and others that can really lead for our people right now. Sorry, that's just the reality, man. Out there, old folk in the nursing home, don't act like I'm saying something new, right? Let them die off, go off in the nursing home, ride off in the sunset, and go do something else with their life. If she had children, she could hand to rock the cradle rules the world. She didn't even think enough of herself to produce herself. Now, I could come back and tell you that whole story about her when she did get pregnant, who she was pregnant by. Hello, and how she got that name Pew. Okay? She really was a crump. I can tell you that, but some of y'all don't want to have that conversation with Brother Muhammad. So we'll go to the next call or next statement, my brother.
Said you are way too real for them tonight.
Yes, sir. Well, we got to keep it real. That's what they said they wanted, right? Keep it real, right? We got to keep it real. But again, this is where we are, where people want reality as opposed to being real. Or they want you to keep it on the real, REEL. We'll go to the next question or comment. And if anybody want to call, 436-1277 before we run out of time.
How did Martin O'Malley get them to drink the Kool-Aid?
Oh man, well, money, and of course that white man. They think white makes right and white is might. That's just that simple. But when it comes to the women, he put that white charm on them, man. You saw the wire. What's his name? Garcetti. Garcetti put that white charm on him. That was the bottom line. And Martin O'Malley loved black women. Let's be clear about that, man. Frank Reed was one of his teachers. He went in and out of Bethel picking women down. That's why I call Bethel Brothel AME Church, man. So I'm telling you what others know and don't want to say. Martin O'Malley liked them black women. And that's the honky-tonk man. When you know the story about the honky-tonk man would blow the horn and come by and pick up the women at the brothel house. That's where he got the term honky-tonk man. Martin O'Malley was the honky-tonk man. And these black women around here, not real black women, these pseudo-black women love themselves some Martin Teflon Don O'Malley. That's just the truth. Next question.
How in the world do you know all this stuff?
I read, I study, I analyze. I talk to the ordinary people in the streets and the people in the suites. Talk to them. And sometimes, as Baba D. Gregory said, when you get them old white men that's getting ready to die and they want to cleanse their soul, they'll come forward and start telling you the kind of information been going on in the city as well. White women as well, they'll come. They don't like some of them white folk like Martin O'Malley. They don't like him. So they'll tell you what he's doing as well. Because they don't want you, because they know there's a price to pay and they're not free as Brother Muhammad. And I've been talking like this since I've been on radio. So I haven't stopped talking like this. So I wasn't somebody who, that's one reason I had to step outside of the Nation of Islam. They couldn't handle me talking like this. So I had to step outside the mosque. Still love many of the brothers and sisters in the mosque, but it was putting pressure on them and heat on them that they had to respond to. So that's how I end up being this way. But I'm born for these times. So, and my teacher was Dick Gregory and Minister Farrakhan growing up inside the Nation of Islam. So, you know, Dick Gregory was outspoken. He didn't hold his tongue. So I'll never hold mine as well. But he told me once you put the magic glasses on, you can't take them off and you can never force other people to see what you see. So that's a road seldom traveled by many and plenty because of that. Next question.
You don't have any fear of these demons?
No, none. If the God I serve couldn't protect me, I may as well enter my life into their hands. So I've already was dead. I'm living now. When you don't know the truth, you walking around spiritually, physically, and mentally dead. You just haven't laid down yet. And so no, I'm going to die. You ain't got but one life to live, one life to give. So when that time comes, it's going to come. But if I thought the God that I serve who raised me didn't and wouldn't protect me, then I would have entered my life, or I stay in my little comfort zone as others do in this city and in this state and in this country and on this planet. Next question.
Never let them find where your war room is.
No, not at all. So I always say you got an armor you see and an armor you don't see. And of course you got to have a ladder pretty high to cut off my blessings and my lessons. And they haven't been able to cut them off yet. They tried, but they can't. So I tell them, keep trying, take your best shot, baby. Next question.
Dick Gregory was the man.
He was in fact, indeed the man. And he's still the man. Because he left plenty here for us as a people. Got about 5 more minutes, I think. So we'll take maybe 1 or 2 more questions before we got to wrap up, or we'll take all of them. You tell me. I'm on your time, my brother. This
one right here is name all the Mobutus and Shibutu Democrats in office right now.
I couldn't. Now time ain't gonna allow me to name all of them. Mobutus and Shibutus. If the only one that's not one down there is probably Belinda Conaway. But if they ain't serving our people and our city look the way it looks. Now, if he talking about in Baltimore City, all of them are Mobutus and Shibutus right now that's down there. Until we see a shift in the paradigm, all of them
Explain that. What does that mean?
Mobutu was a traitor against his people. That's a race traitor. During slavery, they called it meritorious manumission. You know what I mean? That they do something seeking favor, knowingly doing it against their people. And so those that's going along with the policies are knowingly doing it against the best interests of our people, which makes them Mobutus for the men, Shibutus for the women. That's just the bottom line. All right? Next question.
Yeah, just people just giving you love.
Respond. Well, I appreciate the love.
Yeah, a lot of love.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I thank you. And, of course, we're going to go deeper each week that we're on. We're going to go deeper next week as well. So, but I wanted to talk about, again, all that transpired over the past week, because we said the press conference was coming out. I told you months ago, that she was going to be Kathy through. That was going to be the bottom line. And she will be indicted, and she either going to jail, and if she makes it, because the boys she been running with, before she start snitching, right? She already shown she ain't gonna say but so much. So, you know, she may meet her demise for the most part. That's how they operate. See? That's how they operate. And if she had real men up around her, okay, then they would protect her. But let me let you in on something. If they killed a Baltimore City police officer and Officer Sean Suter, and your mayor didn't stand with that black woman, his widow, as we approach Mother's Day, then again, what's good for the goose, gonna be good for the gander. So you get in, you get out what you put in. If she didn't put nothing in to help that family, ain't nothing coming back to her. If she didn't put into the black community like Mayor Marion Barry, ain't nothing coming out. You know how you go to a vending machine and you put your money in and you expecting that product to come out, right? And you keep going to that vending machine and your product never comes out. You call the manufacturer, you call the delivery man, you say, look, man, I put my money in the machine and that product didn't come out. Now, every time you walk past that vending machine, you're going to remember that you didn't get the product, but they took your money. Likewise with your black elected official. They get out what they put in. Mayor Marion Barry crimes was against himself. He left the black print and blueprint on how to be a mayor in every major city where black people are. Marion Barry crimes was against himself, not against his people. So when Marion Barry went to court and went to trial, they couldn't find a jury that would convict Mayor Marion Barry. Can't say that about Sheila Dixon. Can't say that about Kathy Pugh. Can't say that about Stephanie Rawlins, because they put nothing in. They're going to get nothing out of the black community. They went in and out of the black community. They don't call that investment. They call that incessment is what they were doing. Okay? Let the record be clear. So let me see if we can get that closing Jackson piece, my brother. And anything we said today is not personal. It's just based on principle. But if you stand for principalities, then, of course, you know you are going to take it personal. So anytime you want to debate it, time, place, and space, all you got to do is name the place and the space, and we'll have our debate. But again, as I said before, in the words of the great scholar John Henry Clark, we only debate our equals. All others we're going to teach. So we're going to post the show on, what'll it be, on the YouTube channel? Radio on Fire YouTube channel, so you can go back and watch the show in its entirety. Share it with your family, with your friends. Support, of course, Radio on Fire. What's the Cash App, my brother, for you? Radio on Fire. Radio on Fire Cash App. And, of course, if you feel that you want to support the state of the city, giving of your time, your talent, and your treasures so that we can continue to come longer and stronger, perhaps add additional days, of course, and be able to bring other information